and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known throughout the United States as the Money Lady, involved in every facet of finance and money making since 1976, and I remain committed to bringing you information, financial information, that you can't find anywhere else, and introducing you to the world of individuals who are visionaries, people that see things and do things that help our community and our society, both nationally and internationally. So today I have another remarkable guest. For the next hour, just sit down and enjoy yourselves because you're going to enjoy this lady. Her name is Idotha Bootsy Neal, and she is president of the Wright Dunbar, Inc., which is an amazing nonprofit organization with headquarters in Dayton, Ohio. And she's going to be talking with me today about reclaiming communities, innovation, collaboration, creativity, and vision. So you want to stay put to be a part of my world today as I bring you into the world of Bootsy Neal from the Wright Dunbar, Inc. in Dayton, Ohio. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you very much.
What a joy. I've so enjoyed talking with you just in the brief moments that we've had before the show aired. Would you please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what makes your world? Give me some background and some history here.
Actually, I'm from Buffalo, New York. That's where I grew up, and I still have family there. I then left, went to Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Great school.
For undergraduate school, and then in 1974, I moved to Dayton, Ohio, and I've lived here ever since, and I love the Dayton community.
I can certainly understand why. I'm a Cincinnatian, but I have fallen in love with Dayton, Ohio. Amazing, innovative, creative visionaries. Seems to be a clustering point. I'm going to read this piece about the Wright Dunbar, Inc. because I think it needs to be read. And it reads, the vision of Wright Dunbar, Inc. is to create a vibrant, urban, walkable community of innovation, creativity, and collaboration where diverse families, businesses, neighbors, and visitors live, work, recreate, and learn together as a testimony to the historic legacy of the Wright brothers and Paul Laurence Dunbar. Remarkable. Why don't you tell me a little bit about this historic legacy of the Wright brothers, which we always associate with airplanes and their vision, and Paul Laurence Dunbar, who is truly an icon of a black man. Yes. I mean, he stands head and shoulders above so many of us, and we're so grateful for his legacy.
Well, Wright Dunbar is a historic district, and it's the home of where the Wright brothers lived and actually invented power flight, and it's also the home of Paul Laurence Dunbar. That's where he lived when he died. And those three geniuses were friends. And so we have a very important historic legacy, and it was the hub of the West Dayton community for decades. In fact, the Wright brothers printed some of the early works of, the first works of Paul Laurence Dunbar.
They were his printers.
Absolutely.
That is so, you always associate them with airplanes.
They were
but
printers.
They were printers as well. Good.
Bishop Wright, who was very much involved in the church, and so early on, their print shop printed a lot of church materials. And so they had a spirit about them where they disregarded race. And of course, Paul Laurence Dunbar, within his own right, was a genius. So those three friends, they disregarded race at a time when it wasn't necessarily popular, and they were friends and they worked together. And so we're really proud of that legacy. We're really proud of the contributions that they have given to the world. And the fact that we're Wright Dunbar says something very unique about our neighborhood and our community. The Wright Dunbar neighborhood was the site of the riots after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And like many inner cities across the country, after the riots, you saw serious disinvestment, abandonment, and neglect. And for well over 40 years, it looked like a war zone. And that particular part, losing a strong residential population, and Wright Dunbar since the early late 1800s, early 1900s was the hub of commerce for that area of the city. That's where
Really?
people were
Okay.
actually able to do everything that they needed in West Dayton. And you have to remember, the river separates Dayton from east to west. So before transportation, before bridges, once you got to the west part of Dayton, you had to do everything. And so that commerce continued to grow and build over the decades. And so in the early 1900s, it was a Hungarian neighborhood as they came to Dayton and in fact built the railroads and built many of the industries that was there. And then in the 30s and 40s, when you saw the migration, Industrial Revolution, and African Americans were migrating to the north from the south, it became a strong working class African American neighborhood. And also because of segregation in Dayton at that time, it also provided a venue for some of the top entertainment in the country. Took place in Wright Dunbar on 5th Street, because we had the Palace, we had the Classic, and so you had icons like Sarah Vaughan and Duke Ellington, and they performed there. And so Wright Dunbar has a rich cultural history, a rich innovative history. It has a strong residential family component, and so from the 60s to the late 80s, it looked like a war zone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Even with that rich history that you've just told me about, all of that went up because of the riots and the unrest.
Disinvestment, the construction of 35 West, which divided the community, segregation that was occurring in the Dayton public schools at that time. So you saw people, and just lifestyle shift, urban sprawl, as you saw people begin to have different lifestyles, and as economic status of families moved, the suburban living became a lot more popular. And so within this inner city, with all of this rich history, you had building after building just boarded up, and actually roofs were in the basement. Structures were collapsing, and it was overcome with drugs and criminal activity and prostitution. But that's what happens when you don't have the resources, the investment, or the focus of any community, east, west, north, or south.
And people did live in this community.
It was the hub, it was the home. I think one of the greatest parts that I enjoy, Michelle, about the history, it's not a day that someone doesn't stop by the office and share that important, rich oral history. And they say it with such kinship and passion, and that's both black and white, because this was the hub of where families grew, and this is where they provided them with a strong foundation for family, community, spiritually, educationally, and they've gone on to do great things.
That is so amazing.
Yes.
Like I said, such a rich history, and then here you come with your vision. Now tell me, when you walked into that situation, what made you accept the position? I have to ask that question.
Well, I had the privilege of serving as a Dayton City Commissioner for 12 years.
Oh my goodness.
And part of our responsibility, of course, was the redevelopment and rebuilding of the communities within Dayton. And actually we had a very strategic plan in how we wanted to do that. We focused on the hub of the core of the region, which is downtown Dayton. And at that time we were focused on 3 components to help rebuild downtown: housing, amenities, and jobs. And so as we looked at what we needed to do to strengthen the core, that's when the baseball stadium was built. That's when Schuster Center was built. That's when Riverscape was built. And so that was part of the amenity base. Then we looked at housing, and that's where you had Cooper Place, you had the Cannery built, you had other housing that came to downtown Dayton, the Firefly building. And then of course we looked at jobs, and we were able to at that time bring Relies On, keep rentals and rentals downtown, and trying to secure that base. But along with that strategic effort, there was also looking at a way to begin to do the redevelopment of the neighborhoods that were contiguous to downtown. And so probably the first one where you can see the greater success is what was called the Genesis Project. And the Genesis Project was focused around UD, County, Miami Valley Hospital, and that's what you see with the development that's still occurring along Brown Street. So in partnership with Miami Valley Hospital and UD's leadership and working with the city of Dayton, the Genesis Project was born. And so they looked at that historic neighborhood of South Park, and you saw the redevelopment. Well, then of course, you looked at West Dayton, and I thought it was very important that West Dayton was perceived as the weakest link. Right. West Dayton was the gateway to the western community and the western portion of the region of the county, and it's also a neighborhood where I lived and still live in West Dayton. And it seemed to me that we in fact should focus on the weakest link. Now, I wish I could take all the credit for it, Michelle, but also at that time, we were getting prepared for the celebration of the centennial of Powered Flight, 100 years of Powered Flight. And so many partners and many community leaders throughout the region realized that this important legacy that helped change the world, that was the start of a real global market in a significant way, looked like a war zone. And so as leaders got together, whether it was private sector leaders or political leaders, we realized that in 2003, we wanted to focus and showcase this historic legacy to the world, and it looked like a war zone. So absolutely, in partnership with a lot of wonderful people who recognized the importance of it. And there was a group under the leadership of an individual by the name of Jerry Sharkey, who actually discovered the buildings and the original sites of where the Wright brothers did all of their work. And he tells us—
in this community.
In this community.
Unbelievable.
In this community.
Just amazing.
It was just that all of the buildings where they did this, their research was just boarded up buildings. And so Aviation Trails, along with under the leadership of Jerry Sharkey, actually stopped the buildings from being demolished.
Now, was this a for-profit or was
nonprofit?
A nonprofit.
Just a group of nonprofit individuals. Yes.
Goodness
and
gracious.
So they protected the legacy.
Okay.
And then under the leadership of Judge Rice and at that time Congressman Tony Hall, they put together legislation that helped to create a national park, which is an interpretive center that celebrates the lives of the Wright brothers and Paul Laurence Dunbar. So right in the hub within Wright Dunbar, we have a national park that helps individuals to learn about the Wright brothers and Paul Laurence Dunbar. So in looking at that legacy, the history, why not seize the opportunity? So I was in fact the champion on the city commission at that time that said we really needed to focus on the redevelopment of this area. And so we in fact invested in housing, and that took off rather well.
Now when you said invested, just because I'm a money person, was there private capital involved, or did you just raise money? How did you do that?
It was public-private sector partnership.
Okay, good.
Because the city invested significant millions of dollars in helping to develop or rebuild the infrastructure.
Okay.
We also purchased the land, and we had a lotto for $1 with the stipulation that individuals had to build on that land. We also provided grants to individuals who lived in that community because we did not want to see gentrification occur. And so we allowed them to be able to also reap the benefits of being able to upgrade their homes and do exterior as well as in some cases interior upgrade, because we were building new homes, infill housing, rehabbing. Those were all tools that help with rebuilding the Wright Dunbar neighborhood. And so to the north, to the south, I'm sorry, is the Wright Dunbar neighborhood where you saw new homes. And this was exciting because this was the first time in over 40 years that new homes had been built in Dayton,
in this area.
In Dayton, Ohio.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we had many housing initiatives throughout the city of Dayton as we worked in South Park or Hook Estates or downtown downtown or in the Wright Dunbar neighborhood. So you saw new houses being built.
And that incentivizes people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
And it created a diverse neighborhood.
Really?
And bringing people back from the suburbs.
They actually came back to the city.
You had some people who moved in from the suburbs to the inner city. You had some people who moved from one part of Dayton to another. But importantly, you had some people who stayed. In the neighborhood as well.
I have to pursue this because in Cincinnati, that's not happening like that.
Well, you have one area, though,
Yes.
that I think is remarkable over the Rhine.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to focus on. But
Yeah.
I don't know if, and of course I may be speaking out of tune here, but we just opened up this spectacular Washington Park across from Music Hall. And it's created some angst, but the reality is it is a completely open and fabulous park for people to do all kinds of things with their families. But the concern that continues to emerge is if this area is going to, now that all of this upgrading and capital development is taking place, whether the people that live there, because most of them are renters and not homeowners, how can they stay in this community that's being turned into homeowners?
I think you have to use a lot of creativity and partnerships.
I think you're right.
And there has to be a commitment from the both public sector leaders as well as private sector leaders that this is what's going to occur.
I agree.
And I believe that when you have a diverse community of homeowners and renters,
yes,
and that's what was significant and that what was important as we built neighborhoods decades ago. It was inclusive of everyone. People who had an invested interest because they own property, or others who live there. Because there's a way that when you have that diversity, you can build and strengthen the values, the foresight, the mentoring, the caring, the sharing of the people who live in communities. And so I think that there has to be a commitment. And I'm really proud that I serve with a team of elected officials who recognize that and believe that that's an important fiber within a community to have opportunities for a lot of people. So that was the start of it.
Gosh,
but
what
then
an
we looked at the
amazing,
commercial quarter and we were like, we've got to do something.
We got to do something
and
here.
Never in a million years did I think that I would have the privilege, the honor to work as a staff person of this organization. But I am now there, I've been there since 2005. And through some of the most difficult economic times, we have truly been blessed. We have been blessed because we've continued to make progress and we move forward. We had the financial support of a wonderful family foundation that believed in the vision, that provided the financial support so that the organization could exist. We had a great team seeking out grants and opportunities. And so we've been able to invest millions in this area in terms of stabilizing the buildings, doing facade improvements, actually purchasing the buildings, getting the roofs out of the basement, working in partnership with the city of Dayton and Montgomery County, the state of Ohio, and the federal government as well, and getting HUD dollars or CDBG dollars or now some home dollars into the area, as well as the private investment of some pioneers who believed in the vision. And we have Bing Davis Art Gallery in the corridor. We have the American-owned radio station, WDAO, under the leadership of Jim Johnson there. Pri-Med physicians, 5 physicians got together and they opened a office there. And then in most recent years, we now have Zeke's Pharmacy. And that was really important because this area was hit by the closure of the big box drugstores. They came in like a boom and they left like a boom. And so now we have Zeke's Pharmacy. And what's really
this is a private, I mean, a small pharmacy.
But what's great about Zeke's, he knows your name.
But see, that is everything.
Your
That's wonderful, wonderful.
And they sell medical goods as well.
Excellent.
And so you can get a hospital bed, you can get a wheelchair, you can get a cane, you can get diabetes shoes. And we did not have those kinds of products within the West Dayton community. And they deliver to you as well. We always have been anchored with Chase Bank, which has been an icon in the Wright Dunbar community. They didn't leave, so they've always been there. But most recently, we were able to open a branch of Wright Credit Union.
Yes, of course.
And then also we have a customer care center for Hospice of Dayton. And then some of the other pioneers, we have Mia Spells and Michael Thompson's law office. We have the rental office for City Forest, which is a property management firm. We have a boutique, After 5 Contour is there.
Oh my goodness.
And we have a bakery that was open, but now it's transitioning to new ownership and will be open again in about 30 days. And so we have
there's that vibrancy because in every community you have to have a stable business base
Absolutely.
for tax revenues, as well as a place for people to shop.
We have a Christian bookstore.
Oh, wonderful.
And we
now, how are your
have-
churches? Do you have a lot of churches in the area?
We do, and we
Okay.
have the support of our churches. In fact, the church that I attend is not very far
Wonderful.
from Wright, Dunbar. It's about 2 minutes away. I go to Mount Eden Missionary Baptist Church under the
Okay.
leadership of Pastor Corey Pruitt, who's new to the
Okay.
area
Oh,
and
good.
dynamic. So
Good.
what you're seeing is that there's a revitalization, a engineering
Yes.
of this community
Yes.
that's an important part of the core of this region. And our vision is that hopefully we'll be able to spur economic development to go all the way to the VA, because the VA, which is west of Wright Dunbar, has an
Okay.
important history within itself, because it was one of the first 3 VAs that was commissioned by President Lincoln. And our
My
cemetery
goodness.
was one of the first to have both black and white Civil War soldiers buried in the National Cemetery. So as you
Here
can
in
see,
Dayton.
here in Dayton.
Okay.
So as you can see, 3rd Street is a quarter historic legacy.
Yes,
So from east to
yes.
west, because east of us on 3rd Street is the National Air Force Museum. And so if you travel,
Which I have been to.
so you can
Yes,
travel
that's wonderful.
from the Air Force Museum through Wright Dunbar all the way to the VA, and it is a quarter of history.
Such history.
And then not far from
Yeah.
there, also a new side of the national park, which will be at West 3rd, and Delphus is the Wright Beef Factory, where the first mass manufacturing of airplanes ever in the world took place in West Dayton.
My words.
Yes.
Bootsy.
Yeah. So
This is hot.
it is, and so
Seriously.
we're really excited. But
Yeah.
we have another project
Tell
that
me.
is coming forward.
Okay.
That in fact we're out on bids now, and will be under construction within the next 30 days. And I think that that's an important part of our history, and it's the Legacy Center. The Legacy Center will be constructed, and hopefully will be open in the latter part of the fall of this year. And the Legacy Center is going to protect as well as celebrate the legacy of many of the heroes and sheroes who helped to shape and form the history of West Dayton.
My words.
Yeah,
So
and that's so important.
Paul Lawrence Dunbar, of course, who achieved such tremendous success by his genius and his brilliance, but he will have companions.
He will have companions, because see, we
Yeah.
have the Paul Lawrence Dunbar Memorial,
Right.
which is one of the first, I believe, the first state memorial that ever celebrated an African American in the United States. But we have so many other important icons and legends in our community. Did you know Mike Sells potato chips started in a garage in West Dayton?
The Mike Sales is out here
potato
on.
chips started in a garage on William Street in West Dayton. We
Really?
have, yes. And then also many of the funk sound. One of
Oh,
our
yeah.
major exhibits in the Legacy Center will be celebrating the funk groups that came out of Dayton. We have 12 national recording groups that came out of Dayton that
12?
helped to change the music
Goodness
industry.
gracious. I know
Absolutely.
Zap.
Zap,
Zap,
Ohio
Ohio-
Players,
oh, yes.
Heat Wave, Phaso, Slave, and some of the names
Yes,
are
I
escaping
know,
me,
I know.
but we're going to celebrate all of them.
All
And
of them came out of Dayton.
out of Dayton. Out of
Goodness
Dayton, Ohio.
gracious. Well, I'm not kidding
they
you. I'm
grew
an
up.
Ohio Players fanatic.
Yes.
That's
and we
what
want to
we grew up
celebrate their
with.
contributions, because they changed the music industry.
They did
They
change.
brought in instruments and a sound
Yes.
after that Motown sound that was unique.
Yes.
And so we don't want to lose those contributions.
Out of Dayton.
Out of Dayton, Ohio.
Goodness
Absolutely.
gracious. Well, I will
Yeah.
tell this, and we're going to talk more, because this is so, I'm learning so much. But again, as I said, that legacy of partnering in creativity and innovation. Let me say this. Our former president, Jimmy Carter, had his peace summits in Dayton. And a lot of people don't understand, why did he go to Dayton? Of all the cities in the United States to have a peace conference at that time, why did he pick Dayton? And I shared with people because if you look at Dayton's history and the tremendous diversity of population groups, that it's not just Europeans, but all kinds of Europeans, English and Scott and French and Germans and it's just a cosmopolitan, diverse community. And then you have your African American community, and then of course, you know, your other ethnic groups. But I've always felt that Dayton didn't toot their horn loud enough.
No, right.
They just kind of stayed on the backside and just did what they did. And I want to toot your horn because my production is up here. Yes. I am producing this show in Dayton, and I find the people here to be quite interesting.
I love Dayton,
yeah.
And I respect a lot of the individuals because it takes partnerships.
It does.
And so what we've done in Wright Dunbar could not be done because of Bootsy Neal. It is done because of a lot of people who believe in the vision, who contributed to the work, staff at the city of Dayton, staff at Montgomery County, NAHA, Aviation Trails, the National Park, the individuals.
All of these people are working
in concert.
Cooperatively.
Yes.
No egos and agendas, Bootsy?
No.
That is amazing.
It really has been a partnership and a labor of love. Difficult times.
I'm sure, because differing opinions and values.
But you know, one of the things when you keep communication open,
yes.
when you don't have a hidden agenda, when you know it's the right thing to do, and what I like about us is we're authentic. Our history is real. It's not something we're orchestrating. It's not something we're fabricating, but the Wright brothers and Paul Lawrence Dunbar lived there. And that spirit still resonates.
So
and you know,
major.
so many, the Manhattan Project. An important part of the Manhattan Project is right down the street from the Paul Lawrence Dunbar House, the first manufacturing of airplanes in West Dayton. The groups that came out, and the list goes on and
they
on. They
manufactured airplanes.
The first in the world.
Yeah. Came out of this community.
Yes, absolutely.
The Wright brothers changed the world.
They changed the world. They did.
I mean, we're benefiting, Dunbar, and he changed the world.
Through the power of the pen.
Yes, he did.
Began to make us look at the social injustices that were occurring. And Orville and Wilbur and Paul disregarded
Friends.
it. They disregarded it. And I truly believe, Michelle, that we can get back to that spirit. And that's what it's going to take as we look at being competitive in the global market.
Right.
And the international market, that we have to rebuild our urban core inner cities where everybody lives, where everybody works.
Yes.
We can't continue to allow unmanaged urban sprawl to sacrifice the inner cities.
Right.
And I mean, even as we embark upon 100 celebration of the flood, 1913 flood, which could have destroyed the city forever, but the Barn Gang, they rebuilt Dayton. And not only that, they said it'll never happen to our community again. So they built the dams. And as I look at many of the communities that are flooding, here 100 years later, we're still protected because those leaders, those individuals gave. It wasn't necessarily just the government, but they cared about the community. And they built manufacturing so that people could have jobs and people could feel good about where they live and they could take care of their families, and they strengthened schools. And I truly believe that if we're going to continue to be a world power, if we're going to continue to make a difference in the world, that we have to rebuild every aspect of this community, every aspect of our neighborhoods, whether it's urban or suburban or rural, that we have to protect farmland, we have to protect green space, we have to protect our environment, but we have to work in concert so that we can have good quality schools for everyone regardless of race. We have to help our children learn languages, and so what I believe that we're doing at Wright Dunbar is just a small piece that's an important part
of
building
piece,
Dayton again.
I have to say, you may perceive it as a small piece, but as I shared with you before we came on air, I am a macro thinker as an economist and banker, and I'm always looking at the bigger picture, and I say little dots here and there connect to a big vision. And the fact that you have been focus, and with help, no question,
Yeah.
with tremendous support and help, makes this such a timely interview. And I just want to thank you for just sharing this with me, because this is what I believe has to happen. We must come back to community.
Yes.
This is unspeakable, what is occurring in our country and the world today. With the level of suffering, and I talked about this on an earlier show, I don't disparage the wealthy, but you can't take this stuff with you.
No.
A hearse does not back up to a bank. It doesn't. And your children are going to squander your generation. The family has very little. And I said, so the opportunity does exist for fair-minded and honorable people of all races, all income strata, to really begin to work collaboratively with a vision for the restoration and re-energization of our communities. Because I'm a small town girl, and I grew up in a small community in Cincinnati at the time, and I walked to church, and I walked to Girl Scouts, I walked to the public library, I walked to the pharmacy, who was a little small pharmacist and sold things. And so everything, and you knew everybody, and you knew your business people, but they were involved in your activities as well.
Yes.
So it was no separation. And I said, to look at where we are today, where you got to drive someplace to get something, then you got to drive someplace else, and you never really get to know people and what makes their world. So you can't really even talk about their pain and suffering because you don't know them.
But I believe that history repeats itself.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you here say that. History's on a recycle.
That Wright will prevail.
I believe so too.
I have to believe that.
Yes.
And that's in my spirit, that's in my continence of who I am. And so with that, I think the best is yet to come. I think it's part of a journey. And I think that it's important that we continue to be advocates. And it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
It is.
And sometimes you get discouraged because as a nonprofit, we're constantly having to raise money to do what it is that we do. But see, we're not just rebuilding buildings. We're building a space and place that's creating a neighborhood where people will live, work, and play, hoping to create jobs, provide quality services, provide an opportunity, not just for people who live there, but for generations to come. And so being a strong advocate, helping people to understand the importance of urban community, of the role that we play within the region, I think is critical and important. And so even though sometimes you get frustrated, sometimes you get discouraged, I've actually seen miracles unfold. And there's days where I'm saying, I don't know how we're going to do it. I'm not sure what the resources will be to make this happen, but it does happen, and I believe in that.
Are you challenged as we look at this new paradigm with scarce resources, governments obviously having trouble, not just our own government, but internationally? Have you seen an impact on your organization?
Charitable giving is changing.
Okay, talk about that.
I still believe that, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we've been the recipient of the charitable giving of individuals within our community. We would not be where we are today had it not been for the Mattil Family Foundation and Clay Mattil's belief in the vision of this area. There's no doubt, and that it will in fact impact decades and generations to come because of his vision and his support. Many of the elected officials have helped to bring in federal resources and other foundations as well.
Yes.
I don't want to just single out that one, but other foundations have continuously given, and corporate has given as well. But at a time when we're all going through transition, it has been challenging. I'm not sure from one day to the next how we're going to, but you know, the city of Dayton, Montgomery County, I don't want to imply that everybody has not done their part, but there's still more to do.
Of course,
and there's still challenges that's out there. And I have to remind myself that if it was easy, then anybody could do it. But to whom much is given, much is required.
That's what
Jesus said. And so I
said.
truly believe that it's, for me, this is not a job, it's a purpose.
Yes.
And so I know that he'll supply all my needs.
Yes.
and not just for me, but for this community. And as we've changed the image and the perception and helping people to have hope again and working with partners that other people will step to the plate, that we'll have the financial resources that we need, that we will be able to continue to rebuild this community and rebuild the next community and rebuild the next community.
I am so inspired by your personal belief, and I have to believe that your physical presence has helped to energize this entire piece to the next level.
I received that.
Well, you should, because it is absolutely the truth. And as you've talked, I was like, oh, this is a woman that I can feel her spirit and and I have such a kinship. So let's talk about you, because truly you, whether you like it or not, all organizations need visionaries and leaders to put that perspective into motion and movement. And your vision had to come out of somewhere. So let's talk about you and what your personal philosophy is about communities and about where do you see America going? Because we've got all these little pockets of tribes. As I tell people, we're breaking off into tribes.
Okay.
And so where do you see this going in terms of your own philosophy?
I still believe in the American dream.
Me too.
I still believe.
I do too.
I still believe in American people.
I do
and
too.
I
God.
believe that we will work in concert. I think it's part of a journey. I think that we all have to give back. Success is nothing if you don't have anybody to share it with.
Isn't that the
And I
truth?
think that I know I would not be where I am today had it not been for the sacrifices of those before me.
Yes.
That I stand on the shoulders of giants
Yes.
and heroes and sheroes who laid down their lives literally. My family was from Alabama originally, and I remember going to visit grandmother where we had to go in the back door. And so those civil rights giants, and one of my sheroes is Harriet Tubman, but also many of the abolitionists, but I also have strong faith as well personally.
Right.
That's at the core of who I am and what I'm about and what I believe in. And so I think that part of what must happen is that we have a responsibility that we have to give to the next generation what was given to us.
Yes,
and
I
that
totally agree.
what would have happened if Harriet Tubman had gotten tired, or Sojourner Truth, or
Ida B. Wells.
Ida B. Wells,
I mean, look
or
at
many
these,
of the
right,
others.
Look at these women. Fannie
But
Lou
they
Hamer.
didn't.
Yeah, but they
didn't get tired.
Right,
they didn't get frustrated.
Right.
They may have gotten angry sometime. They may have gotten discouraged. And so we have a responsibility to continue to try to reach out and touch lives and help to make a difference and speak up and speak out and do our part. Yes, the neighborhoods are changing. Yes, you're seeing an escalation, but I believe there's nothing that we can't, as a community, resolve if we work in partnership. If we come to the table in harmony and in concert. And you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
And so when I look at the global market, when I look at the international market, the national market, the statewide market, I can only look at this one little part. Maybe I can't make a difference in the world, but if I can make a difference right there within my own neighborhood. And it's also important that we have to make a difference within our own families. We have to be there for our children the way that I was blessed to have my parents to be there for me. And it wasn't just my parents, it was the teachers that were in my lives that helped me to understand what tomorrow could hold. And that we really need to be still and work together and remove some of the anger, remove some of the violence, and you know, give people hope. And share our resources, you know, support. And it's not just the Wright Dunbar nonprofit organizations, but a lot of organizations that are touching the lives of people every day, that rely on the generosity of individuals. Let's continue to give. Let's continue to do our part. If people would just give $5 to an organization.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more.
It could make a big difference in the lives of so many. And you pick your organization. Of course, I would hope that people would support Wright Dunbar so we can protect the legacy and we can rebuild the community and the neighborhood and create an economic base. But there's so many other organizations out there that they can support
That do
and
good work.
evaluate.
Yeah, that do good work.
We have the Walk of Fame.
Okay, what's that
Walk
about?
of Fame is where we've inducted over 135 individuals, and as you walk along West 3rd Street, in the pavement are the names and descriptions of individuals who have helped to change the world. If you think the Wright brothers or Paul Laurence Dunbar are our only heroes, you're sadly mistaken. But right there within Wright Dunbar on West 3rd Street in the pavements, we have individuals who have made major contributions throughout the world. And so we have a major fundraiser in September that will be held on September the 20th at Sinclair Community College.
Yes.
And that's where we're inducting 6 new heroes and sheroes. And so individuals can become sponsors of that. It
Yes.
helps to protect that legacy, that program, that event, as well as it contributes to the operations of Wright Dunbar Inc. But what's also exciting about the Walk of Fame, we bring school kids to the area and they get to walk literally on the back of giants. But it also helps them with reading, because they have to read the pavement. They have to read about the individuals. We do have a tour guide book that gives you a little background about each one of the individuals who have been inducted, but then they go and do research about that individual, and then they write essays about the individual. In fact, Michelle, this week I'll be conducting 3 tours
Oh my,
of
with
individuals
children?
that will be coming down
Oh my
to Wright
goodness,
Dunbar
yes.
Inc. to visit the Walk of Fame. And so the Walk of Fame is one of our major fundraisers. That's a way that a person can help to support.
Right.
And then on September the 14th, we're going to have Urban Nights. I invite you down.
Oh, but you know I'm coming.
It's on a Friday, 5 to 10.
That's
and we
fine.
have the art gallery, we have the gospel cafe, you can visit the interpretive center. We have vendors that are there. We have entertainment that is there. But again, it's a part of bringing people together to create a sense of space and place. And there'll be health vendors there, because part of our branding is that we are the legacy district, the legacy district of health and wellness, because we have at the gateway of Wright Dunbar, Casano Health Center, and Wright State School of Professional Psychology. And we're working with a special project with Wright State School of Professional Psychology that will bring 3 additional expansions of their clinic into Wright Dunbar. And then at the western portion of Wright Dunbar, we have the Charles Drew Health Center. And so within that, we have a health legacy district where we're helping people with mind, body, and soul. So whether it's the School of Professional Psychology, that we're dealing with your mind, or whether we're dealing with your soul and your spirit, it's the art that Bing Davis's bring out the creativity, or the music of WDAO, or the healthcare of Pri-Med, or hospice of Dayton, helping you deal with afterlife and that kind of care.
But this is so organic.
Yes.
When I hear you talking about this, I just say this is such an organic move with so many dimensions of humans. From health and eating and creativity and all the things that make us so unique.
And we have some of the best barbecue.
Are you kidding me?
Al's Smokehouse is opening.
On your side too?
On our side in Wright Dunbar. Of course, one of our anchors has been the Ohio Pawn Shop. High Bloom has been there for years. But we're coming back.
This is so good.
And you have to believe in that. And we have to believe in the United States economy as well.
Yes. Well, I think it's going to be us. I'm going to tell you, Bootsy, and I said this, and it wasn't popular many years ago, but I said it may sound totally anti-global because I do travel internationally. I said, but we got to take care of home. There's something about the American spirit, no matter what country I was in. I was in China running around, and they know us. We exude a positivity that is not evident in other countries.
Well, I remember I traveled to Bosnia shortly after the end of the war because of the Dayton Peace Accords were here in Dayton, and I was the elected official. And I remember arriving at the airport and about to get into a cab, and the cab driver said, "Where are you from?" And we said, "Dayton." And he said, "We love you because you brought peace to the world." And I had an opportunity to see war up front because it had just ended. And the family that I stayed with, I was able to see the bullet that went through right over her bed. And I remember thinking, this is war for real. And
real.
when we flew back in, I was so thankful for the United States.
Oh my God.
But when you travel to other parts of the world
Yeah.
and you see the devastation or the challenges that they're faced
Yeah.
with, you realize that
Incredible.
we can overcome all of ours.
Yes.
But you know, there's a war going on right here. We've got to embrace our young people to help them to
Yes.
understand and respect life.
Yes.
And to end the violence.
Yes.
And work in concert. But we also have to not just say that in words. We need small businesses to give these kids a second chance.
Yes.
Those individuals who maybe made poor choices, which we all did,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm
it's part
thankful
of
that
being
the
young.
poor choices I made weren't life-changing
Right,
forever.
right.
But we've got to give them jobs. We've got to create opportunities where they can earn a living wage, and we have to do it with providing them with a good education, supporting our school system and the teachers that are in the classroom
Right.
so that they can be competitive in a global market.
Right.
You know, education for me was not an option. My parents
neither.
instilled that in me, saying that that's how you were going to be able
And your
to survive.
grandparents.
And my
your
grandparents,
okay, let's,
that's
let's
right.
go on.
Absolutely.
Like you're going
That's
to
right.
college.
You didn't
Next.
have a choice.
I was gonna
You know,
say,
I
in the
think-
conversation.
I think there's four ways you can empower people. Educationally, which I've committed my life. I'm still an adjunct at Central State University. And I've worked there for 18 years as an administrator. Politically, I had the opportunity to serve as an elected official. Economically, I believe that what we're doing in Wright Dunbar now is
this is
contributing to the economic fabric of our community, but also spiritually. I believe that it's important that we embrace religious institutions within our community,
Yes.
and helping them to become more involved in the community to help change lives and meet those needs as well, because none of us can do it alone.
Not at all.
So I
Not
think
at all.
educationally, economically, spiritually, and politically,
Yes.
we all have to work in concert. And with that, we will again be a strong force within the global market.
I'm excited about that. I saw in reviewing your resume that you have spoken and been and presented in
Yes.
South Africa
Yes.
and other African countries.
Zambia, South Africa,
Yeah.
Rio, Israel, Germany, Japan.
Goodness gracious. Now, what could you say as you went into particularly Africa, because that, of course, is where my heart has been for so many years in terms of the women, empowering the women economically. But as you look at a continent that is so huge and full of so many challenges, do you see any correlations or any skill sets from the Wright Dunbar project that you could bring into those economies?
I think it's important that they look at the resources they have right within their own community.
Okay.
When you look at the global market, you can always say what you don't have,
Right.
but you need to focus on what you
What
do
you do
have.
have. I
And
like
whatever
that.
it is that you have, build upon that. And you have to start small, but I think more importantly, believe in it. And we need to take whatever that resource is. Part of my job when I was there working with USAID is that we were helping them to understand how to do local government. Because see, apartheid had just ended. And so as a part of this project, we went in to help them in terms of helping to rebuild local government, how to govern themselves. But I think a part of it is take whatever resource you have, no matter how small it may be, but believe in that, work with that, bring in partnerships, protect it, and work in concert, and make sure that you share.
Powerful.
See, when you
Powerful.
include other
Powerful.
people and not just yourself,
Right.
and you can't do it for the title, you can't do it for the visibility, but also understand that leadership, there's a penalty for being in leadership. And
Ooh-wee.
sometimes you have to stand alone.
Yes.
And people don't understand you, and people don't like you that don't even know you.
Yeah.
But you have to be strong, and that's
Yes.
where your faith becomes an anchor for allowing you to stand and doing what it is that needs to be done. And then not being afraid to ask for help.
Right.
Get out of the way, because you won't
Right.
know everything.
Right.
You
And you
can't do
can't-
everything.
you can't know everything either.
So you have to
Right.
reach out and
And
get
be
partners
willing.
and be willing to have people help you.
Right.
And then you also have to know when it's time to back up. And when to move over, and when to mentor someone to take your place, because sometimes we stay too long.
Yes, we
And
do.
we need somebody
yes, we
with
do.
the
And move 'em
energy
on.
and somebody to come in. So there's opportunities that I think in every country that if you work in concert, look at your resources, take a neighborhood, take a tribe, take an area, build it up, make it strong, because we know that we can. Because within Africa was some of the first in the world.
Oh my goodness.
And that's documented and recorded.
Yes.
And so when you believe in that, and when you know your history, when you know where you're coming, when you know where you come from,
yes.
you know where you're going.
Right.
And see, I know I come from a line of strong individuals with strong faith, who believe in people, who
yes.
care about people, who love people,
yes.
who taught me to love myself.
Yes.
Then I have to continue to believe that that's the way things will happen, and that's how we'll make progress.
I am so impressed to hear you say this, because, and you don't even know how much you are ministering to me, because of my life story, which has been one of just giving and sharing and loving and caring. And I do believe that this is what God has set us as people to do.
Absolutely.
That we don't run this ship. It's His ship. We are blessed to be a part.
Absolutely.
But it's not our ship, it's His ship, and it is His story. So when I listen to you talking about that, it just kind of affirms a lot of things in myself, because it can be a lonely journey.
Sometimes.
And you can be misunderstood.
Yes.
A lot, particularly as a female.
Absolutely.
You know, as I tell folks, there are Lucys, there are Charlie Browns, but there are Lucys too.
Right.
And we're going to get in the sandbox, and the dynamics will change. But I think the commitment has to be, as you have said. And I'll tell you what I sense from you. And it's funny, because when I stand and interview what I call great people, no, it's great, because greatness, your life story has been about sharing and about giving and about greatness. But as we look at these things today, I just want to close out by saying, in today's segment, and it has moved far too fast, but I do pick up from you clearly that you understand and embrace love.
Absolutely.
You do. And
yes.
that resonates all over you, that you are a woman who loves unconditionally
yes.
and expansively.
Yes.
Which is where we have to be today, because I firmly believe that the family is under attack. Our young people are the victims, because they haven't had the same guidance in so many cases that we were blessed with. We
That's
had
right.
fathers and mothers that were strong, and grandmothers and great, and they just didn't take any nonsense, you know, and you called them yes ma'am and no sir, and if you look funny, you'd be minus a face.
That's absolutely right.
You'd be minus, and they'd say, if you can't call 401 kids, because we will not have you here. You won't be around to call anybody. But out of that background and cushioned with tremendous love, we
Yes.
were loved.
Unconditionally.
And love overcomes and drives
Absolutely.
so much. So I think that as I listen to you today, and you're expansive and frankly overwhelming.
Yeah.
No, it's not bad. It's just a mark of greatness, because you've seen things that other people do not see. And you have allowed God to use you
Oh, yes.
to take you into venues locally, nationally, and internationally. And that's what leaders do. Just by their very vision, they change lives. And we're at that perfect storm, Bootsy, right now. We're here.
Yes.
America's on a path. And we are going to have to come back to the basics of love
And faith.
and faith,
And faith.
and believing that the future
Yes.
is brighter
That's right.
than the past.
That's right.
And that with all of us working together, collaboratively and cooperatively, and as you've shared here, it's so beautiful, which is live, work, recreate, and learn together. That is powerful.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for having been a part of my world, and my viewers who watch this show in so many cities, just to know that this has been fantastic and wonderful, and I just send you great love and blessings.
I receive that.
Because you are
Thank
you are
you.
loving with a purpose.
Thank you.
You are. Thank you so much.
It's
God
been a
bless
pleasure.
you so
Thank you so
richly.
much.
You take care. And to those of you that are watching today's segment of Power of Money, I'm your host, Michelle Graves, interviewing Idotha Bootsy Neal, president of Wright, Dunbar, Inc. in Dayton, Ohio, and a phenomenal woman. We need to make a little square with your name on it before you leave Earth. Thank you so much for being a part of my world, and we'll look forward to seeing you on my next segment of The Power of Money. You be blessed. Take care.